Hey everybody, welcome to the very first episode of Pine Hill Cooking, coming to you right here in beautiful Pine Hill Cabin in Lost Creek, Kentucky. This is the first episode, might be the last episode, who knows. But anyway, today we're going to be making a really special treat. It is one that brings back a lot of memories to me. It is the old-fashioned homemade fudge. And it's really simple, it seems like to make, but I've never made it before, so we'll see how it turns out. To make this recipe, all you need are these ingredients. We're going to be using sugar, and of course, Hershey's cocoa powder, my favorite, salt, milk, butter, and vanilla extract. Now, usually I like to use the real vanilla extract, but all we had available today was imitation. It's just fine. You're also going to need something to cook it in. Since this is old-fashioned homemade fudge, we're using something old-fashioned to cook it in, just like your grandma would have made a cast iron skillet, and a spoon, wooden spoon, to stir it with. And finally, just because it is old-fashioned fudge, we're going to be cooling it in this vintage 1950s Pyrex. Love this dish. So if you've ever made homemade fudge before, you know it's very important that the very first thing that you do is go on ahead and butter that dish, because once you have got everything cooked, you're not going to have time to butter your dish. So I had got my son Jacob, and he is going to be demonstrating how to do that. Now, buttering the dish is very important. The reason that you butter the dish is because you don't want your fudge sticking to the dish. So if you look at Jacob right here, you can see that he is not only totally coating the bottom of the Pyrex, but he's also going to butter the sides, because, you know, you don't want it sticking to the sides either. Now, as you're doing this, you'll notice that the hardest parts for this dish are the corners. So Jacob's making sure that he is really getting a good thick layer of butter on there. So now that we have our pan buttered, we're ready to start cooking the fudge. Carefully measure out 3 cups of granulated sugar. The next ingredient is 2/3 cup of, in our case, Hershey's cocoa. The next ingredient you're going to need is 1.5 cups of milk. Now, Jacob's already done that. Jacob, show us the milk there in our nice Pioneer Woman bowls that we're using for this recipe. So make sure, like I said, don't use anything extra. So 1 1/2 cups of milk. Our next ingredient is 1/2 stick of real butter. The next ingredient is 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then, of course, I said we're going to use a pinch of salt. You don't have to measure this out. It's about 1/8 of a teaspoon, but, you know, just eyeball it. We're going to use a pinch. Okay, we're ready to start cooking. So the first thing that we're going to do is mix in our nice cast iron skillet, our sugar. Just pour it right in there. Great job, Jacob. Then our cocoa. I love it. And then we put 1/8 teaspoon of just a pinch of salt. And you can see, it's just, I mean, you can't really even see it. Okay, go ahead and mix that right into the skillet. And that is our dry ingredients. Okay, we're gonna just give this a nice little stir right now, just to incorporate that delicious Hershey's cocoa in with our sugar. Okay, now we're gonna pour in our milk. So we have our milk all ready to go, and Jacob's gonna pour that right in there. So nothing fancy, see, just pour it in. And then we're gonna stir it with our wooden spoon. So Jacob, go on ahead and give that a stir. Let's see what it looks like. So if you look at a candy recipe nowadays, they're going to say to cook it at a certain temperature, make sure that the liquid comes to, I don't know, 200 degrees or something. Make sure that it is in a hard ball test and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, you know what? In the old days, our grandmothers probably didn't have a candy thermometer. They just knew how to make fudge. So I have a fudge expert that I called Tony Moore. He is the husband of my wife's cousin, Carrie Moore, and he is, like I said, an expert at fudge, and he gave us a foolproof way when you're making old-fashioned fudge. We're going to get this liquid to a boil, And then once it gets to a boil, we're gonna turn it down to medium heat and let it boil exactly 16 minutes. So we have our cast iron skillet here on the stove, and I'm gonna go ahead and turn on the heat, and we're gonna let this come to a boil, stirring it constantly. That is very important. We wanna make sure it doesn't stick. So let's see what happens. So our fudge is heating up. It's really important that you keep this stirred. You don't want it to stick. And you want to make sure that that sugar is staying mixed in with your liquid. This isn't powdered sugar or confectionery sugar. This is just plain old granulated sugar, just like you would put on your cereal in the morning. So I've been stirring this fudge for quite a few minutes. I've got my stove setting at about 7, which may seem high to you, but you want this to come to a boil while you're stirring it. So if you listen, you don't hear that gritty sound anymore. That sugar is dissolving into the liquid, and you want to keep it in that liquid. You don't want it to start settling down again. Okay. Can I tell you that my arm's pretty tired right now? This is almost boiling. I mean, it is right there. And I think, there we go. I think we're done with the stirring. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a mess by putting my spoon there, and we're going to turn this down to about a 4. And we're going to let this cook for 16 minutes. It's 7:37 right now. So we'll be back in 16 minutes and we'll see what we got. Just remember, at this stage, no stirring. Wish us luck. So one of the hardest things for me when you're making fudge is waiting for the fudge. You know, it's right there. It looks so delicious. You just want to eat it. But it's not ready yet. We still have about 5 minutes for it to do its little slow cooking, and I'm sitting right here so I can keep an eye on it, make sure everything's okay. Let's see what happens when it finishes its cooking magic. Oh, look, almost that magic time. When that clicks over to 7:53, I, being the responsible adult, I'm going to immediately remove it from heat, and then we're going to let Jacob take the butter and vanilla extract. Here we go. Get the butter, baby. Get the butter. And he is going to put the butter in there. So go on ahead and pour that in. All right, good job. Now go get the vanilla extract. You're doing great. Look at that. Didn't I tell you that was going to be awesome? So he's going to get his Elvis cup and bring it over here, because that's where we put the vanilla extract. Go ahead and just pour that in. Okay, and like, what did I tell you? You're going to want to stir that, right? It looks like it should be stirred, but it's not. So we're going to come back here in about 7 minutes, which would be at right around 8 o'clock. That's going to give that time to melt and incorporate into our hot liquid. And then we're going to stir it. And then it's going to be amazing. So it's almost time for the next step. And what you're going to want to do is, as soon as that cools down just a little bit, and we're almost ready to do it, you're going to want to use your wooden spoon, and you're just going to start stirring and stirring and stirring. And you're going to stir for about 7 minutes. I know that seems like a long time, but let me tell you, if you're going to have good fudge, you got to have strong arms. All that butter and stuff is in there. Now this is the next step of, better have strong arms, because what you're going to do is you're going to stir this, and you want to stir it for about 7 minutes. Still stirring. Hopefully I'm burning off enough calories that I can enjoy a nice piece of fudge with no guilt. All right, we are back. And what did I say? Cooking magic. Because when you first start stirring it, you might be thinking, this is never going to thicken up, but look at this. We haven't even put it in the fridge yet. It is already looking amazing. So all we have to do now is just pour it into that buttered dish, put it in the fridge, and let's see what we got. So now our fudge is in the refrigerator. It's chilling. And you know how I said the hardest part about making fudge is waiting for the fudge to firm up? Got me some fudge right here. And that's it. Easy peasy, right? A lot of stirring. Everybody, thank you for tuning into this first and possibly the very last episode of Pine Hill Cooking, coming to you right here at Pine Hill Cabin in Lost Creek, Hardshell, Kentucky. And by the way, if you like this video, send me a message. Let me know. I'll be looking at your comments below. If you didn't like it, don't send me a message. I'll never know. Have a good night, everybody.